Hey guys, happy Thursday. I saw some really good grades on the Things Fall Apart test yesterday, so yay, I'm super proud of you. There ended up being just a couple of questions that I didn't like in the long run, so there will be a small little curve on there, probably 3 points. And so you'll see those grades show up in Synergy later on today. Same thing with the research paper grades. I'm going to have all of that done today as well. I wouldn't bother looking till later on this afternoon because I'm still going to be working on that. Remember that if you don't see a grade for your research paper, it doesn't mean that it was a bad grade. It just means that it wasn't going to help you. So you can go into turnitin.com and see what I marked on the rubric. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of other things. I was not going to assign another vocabulary list, but I did. Some of you guys need a grade in that category. So this is your last chance. I'm not assigning any more. All right, so the new assignment's already been posted and it's AP Lang terms. I thought, a little bit of practice with some of the terminology for next year might be very helpful. Even if you're not taking AP Lang, it's still really good vocabulary to be familiar with. So you have just under 2 weeks to be practicing those words, and we'll have a final vocabulary quiz on May the 12th. Okay? So that's out there if you should need it. Obviously, everything is optional at this point, so do what you need to do. Today's assignment is a pre-writing assignment for the literary analysis paper that we're going to be tackling. We'll do the pre-writing today, and then we'll work with the rest of it next week. Okay, so next week's assignments are going to completely revolve around this little literary analysis paper. So let's take a look at the assignment that I've already posted on Edmodo. I'm logged in as a student, and they put a new feature on Edmodo, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So we'll take a look at it, and I'll give you some options, but you can see it here. Here's the assignment. You click the word open, and the new feature, what it does is it actually allows me to create like a copy for every single student so that you can click on the assignment. You don't have to click create. You don't have to click attach. You should be able to just click on the assignment and it will open it and let you edit it and then turn it in. However, sometimes if you have connectivity issues or Edmodo's being glitchy or I don't know, just doesn't open properly, you may have to come back here and create or attach. All right, I don't really care how you end up sending it to me. Attaching it is sometimes the easiest. You download a copy of it to your to your computer, and then when you finish it, then you just attach a file from your computer. Okay, so if you need a grade, it's a daily grade. So if you need a grade, you can figure out the best way to attach it for you. Let's see if it's going to be working on my computer. So theoretically, it pops up. And it will pop up in editing mode, as you see right here, and then allow you to turn it in. And this is what I'm talking about. Please reconnect to continue. Reconnect. And I haven't, every time I try, it won't. The first time I opened it, it worked beautifully. And then when I tried to go back in and open it again, it wasn't working. So maybe it has something to do with that. Again, it's a new feature, so it may have a few glitches. But that's okay. There are lots of other ways to get around that. You can always go and just download it to your computer. I want to zoom in a little bit and take a look at the assignment and talk about how helpful this might be in writing your paper. Here's the actual prompt. I'm going to highlight it. It's right there in bold. So you're going to be writing an analytical essay about Things Fall Apart, and you're going to be examining one character's response to that cultural collision that's caused by the introduction of Western ideals into Igbo society. Okay? You're going to analyze how that collision changes the character's sense of identity and then explain how his response shapes the meaning of the work as a whole. All right. So the pre-writing, that actually maybe sounds a little complicated, but it's not. The pre-writing questions break it down for you really nicely. And to be quite frank, the way the pre-writing questions are written, you can use them to organize your paper. Paragraph 1, 2, 3. I mean, if you should so choose. So the first thing it asks you to do is brainstorm some of the characters that did have a significant positive or negative response to this cultural collision, this introduction of Western ideals. So I listed the three most common, the three most obvious, probably the easiest ones to do: Okonkwo, Obiorika, that's probably spelled wrong, and Nwoye. okay? Because I think their responses to these Christian missionaries was the most distinct. But don't think those are the only options. I'm just saying they're the three easiest, most obvious ones. And I certainly want you to pick something that's going to be interesting and easy for you. But you could do other characters, a strong female character perhaps, or I even had someone in the past do more like a group of characters, those outcasts, the Ephelefu and the Osu. So those may be possibilities. But anyway, think through a couple of options and then decide which one you think will be best for you. And it tells you to circle it or highlight or bold it, whatever, identify it in some way before you get to answering these questions. The first question asks you to think about the character's sense of identity before the encountering of Western influence. So now we're talking part one. Okay, for this first question, I want you to think about what this character was like, what they believed, how they behaved in part one, and why that was significant. Okay, because that's where we're really establishing who these people, these characters are deep down inside. Whether you're talking about Okonkwo and his strict adherence to traditions and his violent tendencies, whether you're talking about Nwoye, who doesn't fit in to this tradition that values this, hyper sense of masculinity and the significance of that. Okay, whether you're talking about Obierica, who had a little bit more pragmatic, realistic outlook on life, like he valued the traditions of society, but he could be a little bit more flexible and adaptable and had more of a sense of I don't want to say picking and choosing the values that he adhered to, but at least considering them all on a more personal level and being able to identify those gray areas instead of seeing everything in black and white the way Okonkwo does. Okay, so who were they before? This is all part one. Then for the second question, and maybe even your second body paragraph, you'll be looking at the character's response to the new culture. Okay, and so you need to consider in parts 2 and 3, how did the character you chose, how did he react? What did he think? What did he do? What did he say? How did he feel? How did he interact? Does he have a new role? Does he have a new perspective on life? Okay, so think about how this character changed or failed to change, changes in his life and his beliefs and his feelings once the Christian missionaries arrived. Okay? And then the third question is, what is the consequence of this character's response? Because there's always going to be consequences, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. So what's the consequence of this character's willingness or unwillingness to change? All right, and then again, you'll be thinking about what's the significance there. And then finally, what's the statement about culture that the author's trying to make through this fictional character? Because while it's just, part of it's just a story, an interesting but tragic story. I think Chinua Achebe really wants us to learn something from these characters that he has created. And, like by looking at Okonkwo's story and who he was and his failure to adapt and his tragic ending, what can we learn? This final one, that's why it has a star on it. This is when you're really getting into that thematic statement. Okay, what's the significance of this person's story? What's the significance about Nwoye? A guy who never fit in, and then he's introduced to a whole new way of life and a whole new perspective that kind of fit like who he naturally was inside. So the fact that he was able to embrace that so easily, what does that say about human nature? What can we learn? What does it say about the value of having a place in society, and having that camaraderie and a feeling of, I guess fitting in a little bit, or at least feeling like, you can contribute and actually believe in the traditions, values, and ideals of the society in which you live. What's the value that we place on that as human beings, using, of course, Nwoye as the example. Or the flip side, Okonkwo, okay? So, I don't know, hopefully you noticed it. I certainly do. You can see how these questions could organize your paper for you, where you would have paragraph 1, before Western influence, paragraph 2, after Western influence, paragraph 3, the consequences of how this character reacted, and then a conclusion, which might be a little bit longer of a conclusion than you're normally used to writing, because this is where you'll really be digging in to that thematic significance and drawing those conclusions about humanity and human nature and how we can apply the lessons learned to daily life and the human existence. Okay? So this is the assignment for today, and obviously tomorrow's a work day, so I didn't even put a deadline in until sometime tomorrow. Again, if you need a daily grade, then do find a way to submit this. If this is all working for you and you are able to edit, you should be able to click right up here on Turn In, and that will submit it to me. Okay? If you are not, if you're getting the same error message that I'm getting right now, then you'll have to come back here and download the assignment a different way, and then you can go back in and attach. Like if you save it to your computer and be able to attach it from a file like this and then say turn in assignment, I'll still get it that way. Okay, so there are a couple of options if that new feature doesn't work. All right, folks, this isn't a super hard paper to write. And actually, I think it's kind of interesting, especially if you enjoyed the book the way my students in the past enjoyed it. And I think it'll be good practice for us since next semester, next school year, may be a little bit more writing intensive. Okay? All right, y'all have a great Thursday and Friday and weekend for that matter. All right, and I will be hopping back on here first of next week for us to continue working on our literary analysis assignment. All right, bye for now.